All right, welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner grinding away for a public sector career, or honestly just someone fascinated by how legal decisions actually ripple into our everyday lives, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking a monumental ruling from the Supreme Court of India. It's a ruling that absolutely every single person aiming for a government job literally needs to know. It's a real game changer for how you approach your applications, and knowing this up front, it's going to save you from a whole lot of potential heartbreak and wasted effort down the line. So let's jump right in. Okay, I want you to picture this scenario because it happens all the time. You're in the final year of your degree, you've been studying relentlessly, burning the midnight oil, and suddenly, bam, the notification drops for your absolute dream government job. But there's a catch. You haven't taken your final exams yet, or maybe you're just sitting around waiting on the results. So the massive burning question is, can you still apply? Like, can you throw your hat in the ring, write the recruitment exam, and just hand over your degree certificate later on once the whole hiring process is wrapping up? Well, for the longest time, there was a ton of confusion around this. But as we'll see today, the Supreme Court has finally given us a crystal clear answer.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the RPSC case background.
To really understand this legal showdown, we need to look at how it all went down. The case is officially known as the Rajasthan Public Service Commission versus Levanchu Shankha and others. It all kicked off when the RPSC announced a massive recruitment drive for assistant prosecution officers. Now, when deadline day finally rolled around, a lot of people applied, including a specific group of law students who hadn't, well, actually finished their degrees yet. Fast forward to the review phase, and the RPSC just outright rejected these candidates. Why? Because they didn't have the required educational qualifications on that specific deadline date. But these candidates weren't just going to give up. They took their fight straight to the High Court, which triggered the appeal phase of this whole saga. Moving right along to Section 2, High Court versus Supreme Court. So the battle lines were officially drawn. On one side, you have these aspiring candidates, and on the other, a massive public service commission strictly enforcing its rulebook. The candidates went to the High Court and basically pleaded, look, just let us take the exam now. We promise we'll have our degrees before you actually hire anyone. And surprisingly enough, the High Court agreed. They ordered the RPSC to take this lenient kind of wait-and-see approach. But the RPSC, they pushed back, and they pushed back hard. They argued for strict adherence to their initial criteria, basically saying if you didn't have the degree on deadline day, you simply didn't qualify. End of story. Viewing the High Court's order as totally out of bounds, the RPSC marched straight up to the Supreme Court. And this brings us right to the ultimate legal question that the Supreme Court had to untangle. On the surface, it sounds like a simple question, but man, it carries massive implications for literally millions of job seekers. Must educational qualifications be held by the application deadline, or is acquiring them later good enough? Think about it. Does the deadline actually mean the deadline, or is it just kind of a soft suggestion as long as everything is sorted by the time they hand you the job offer? Which leads us to Section 3, Reasoning Behind the Ruling. Now, what's really interesting here is how the Supreme Court went about settling this dispute. They didn't just make a judgment call out of thin air, right? They meticulously scrutinized the original employment notification issued by the RPSC. And their primary finding was just brilliantly simple. Right there in the text, a specific clause explicitly stated that all qualifications must be present on the final day of application. The Supreme Court essentially pointed out, hey, this wasn't some hidden trap or a trick. It was undeniable text written plain as day right in the employment announcement itself. To fully explain exactly why the High Court was wrong to allow that wait-and-see approach, the Supreme Court had to tackle a piece of legal jargon known as retrospective effect. Basically, this means backdating a qualification. Let's say the application deadline is in January, but you don't actually get your degree until June. Applying retrospective effect would mean pretending you somehow had that June degree way back in January. And the Supreme Court explicitly rejected this. They firmly ruled that getting a degree subsequently, at a later date, absolutely cannot be retroactively applied to meet a deadline that's already passed. Only a prospective effect applies here. In plain, everyday terms, if you don't physically have the paper in your hand on the day the application window closes, you cannot apply. Period. And this brilliantly illustrates that the court wasn't just, obsessing over dry legal theory up in an ivory tower. They were looking squarely at the harsh practical realities of running a massive recruitment drive. They laid out two major super practical justifications for their ruling. First off, allowing people to apply without current qualifications, That will create total chaos in the recruitment process. I mean, imagine trying to rank candidates when half of them might not even graduate. It'd be like trying to build a house before you even have the bricks. Second, it eliminates a colossal and completely unnecessary administrative burden. If they actually allowed this, the commission would have to manually track the subsequent degree status of thousands of applicants for months down the line. It's a complete administrative nightmare that the commission simply shouldn't have to deal with. So here we are at the climax of the case, the final verdict. The Supreme Court came down hard and firmly struck down the High Court's leniency. They officially quashed that High Court order that let unqualified candidates write the exam. They allowed the RPSC's appeal, siding 100% with the commission. The definitive legal standing, now set in stone by the highest court of the land, is right there. Aspirants must hold their qualifications by the deadline. If you do not possess the required educational qualifications on the exact date of application, you are simply ineligible for the post. No ifs, ands, or buts. So, Section 4, Vital Takeaways for Aspirants. We've covered the timeline, the courtroom drama, and the heavy legal reasoning, but what does this actually mean for you and your day-to-day preparation? Well, so the crucial point is this. This is your new golden rule. If you are prepping for government jobs right now, I want you to write this down, tape it to your wall, and live by it. All educational qualifications absolutely must be met by the application deadline. There are zero exceptions for getting it later. You cannot bank on getting your degree a week or even a month after that deadline closes. The Supreme Court has made it incredibly clear that the subsequent acquirement of a degree just does not count. Honestly, do yourself a huge favor, save your time, save your energy, and save your hard-earned application fees until you actually hold those required qualifications in your own two hands. Which leaves us with this final, vital question to ponder. Are you reading your employment notifications closely enough? This entire legal saga, which went all the way up to the Supreme Court of India, started simply because candidates misunderstood or maybe just ignored the strict criteria written right in front of them. So, before you ever hit that submit button again, I want you to ask yourself, do you truly hold the qualifications today, or are you just hoping for tomorrow? Thanks for tuning into this explainer. See you next time.